What's up YouTube, it's Big Daddy here, and today I'm going to be filming our second episode of So Spooky. I'm so excited to tell you guys some stories. There's going to be some personal ones from me and my mom, so I hope you enjoy. So, for our first story, it's actually going to include my mom. A long time ago, she wrote it down on a forum website because she was so shook. So I'm going to read that a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you guys the story she's told me in way more. This was on May 4th in 2008 at 3:35 a.m. So I was driving home around 12:30 a.m. when all of a sudden I looked up, and at that very moment, an extremely large, we're talking bigger than an apartment complex large, flash of green light. Solid green, no streaks, like lightning. Just round, huge, and was about the color of a stoplight. I only could see about half of whatever it was because buildings were in the way, and I could not tell where it was coming from. It only lasted about 2 seconds. No sound or movement, just flash, and then gone. The lights inside of my vehicle went out, but it was still running, and a friend of mine experienced a power outage around the same time, and she's about 5 miles away, but yet I still had power where this happened. Alright, so with her experiences or whatever, this other time, she went outside. I don't know the complete full story with this one. I guess that was a different one I totally like. But she went out, or like she was in her house like a long time ago, living with her parents, and she was on the porch, and her dad kept telling her, "Oh, come inside. It's getting late and cold." Da 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 da. And she was just sitting out there looking in the sky because she saw this thing streaking, just for hours. Just watching it for hours. It was just going in just a weird way. And she asked her dad, like, is this a satellite? What is it? And he's like, no, it's not a satellite because they don't move like that. They orbit. And she was just shook. And then after that, she, went into her house, went into her room, laid down there for a minute, still watching it from the window because she could see it from the inside, from out. Started getting closer and closer, and then out of nowhere, like this was hours, but out of nowhere, it's like outside of her window, and this thing is literally huge. She says, big as a building, huge, and she was shocked. She said she couldn't exactly remember in between, but she remembers hitting her shin, and then all of a sudden she was outside running toward it. She explained it as being very large, obviously, and, typical UFO shape. But in the windows was like fluid-like or gas-like substance in there that was just red, green, yellow, orange, just colorful in there. And she remembers it distinctly. But as she was running toward it, it took off just as fast as she, saw it, like 2 seconds and it was gone. And then she tried to explain to them, but no one saw it, so, yeah, crazy stuff. So today's video is not gonna be as long as my other ones, which is probably good as whatever, but, my next story is gonna be one that I personally experienced. I'm gonna read it on my phone, but because I wrote it down just to make sure I had every single detail, So this next story is about a house that me and a few friends have explored. An abandoned house. This was about a year or so ago, and it's actually my first time experiencing something like that, but it was very, very rad, very interesting, super crazy, but we'll just get right into it. So one day, me and a couple of friends wanted to go on a little adventure. We wanted to do something crazy, something spontaneous, and there was this abandoned house that one of my friends has known about. So after contemplating what to do, we grabbed our vodka crayons and headed that way. We walked to it because it wasn't very far from our location already, but it was about 7 or 8ish in the summertime, so the sun was starting to go down. After walking for a bit, we come across a bunch of trees and a driveway. We walked down the long driveway, which was definitely overgrown, grass all the way up to our waist. We kind of ran a little bit because it was inside of the sheriff's station. The house was small and brick and very cute looking if it was upkept. And there were 2 front doors. 2 doors, not 2 front doors. One facing south, which was the front door, and the other east. which was a weird back door, and both were locked. The house was surrounded by a bunch of trees, and vultures just sat there, staring us down with every move we made. It gave us very eerie vibes. We then made our way to the opposite side of the house from the front door, and found a window. It was pretty high up, but there was already cinder blocks stacked up. We all got kind of spooked and fought over who had to go in first. One friend went in, then me, and then the other. It was starting to get darkish by the time we got in, so we turned on our flashlights on our phones. The house didn't have any furniture really, and we were in what looked like the living room. There were stairs directly to our left that went up, and in front of us was a little breezeway to the front door that had shoes on the floor and a calendar that said December of 1993. To the left of that doorway was the entrance to the kitchen. The kitchen was definitely frozen in time. Right when you would walk in, you would see the cupboards and the countertop with the sink and a bunch of bowls that were lined up on the counter, and an old boxy television. On the wall behind you, there was a super old-looking metal stove with drawers that was very rusted. There was also an ancient tin bread box and a teapot on the stove. I'm not gonna lie, I snooped. And in the cupboards there was non-perishables, cereal boxes, snacks, and such, all from 80s and 90s, I think. There was also that cup with the blue and purple stars on it. You know the one I'm talking about, with the pattern that just takes you back. But anyways, at the end of the kitchen is the way to the back door, and also the way to the basement. Off to the right of the stove and the kitchen was a little room. There was a bed, clothes in a basket on the floor, and a huge wooden crib. The room was very creepy. Probably a room for a mom and her kid or something. Near the crib was a door. The room was the bathroom, and it had two doors. One that goes out to the living room. It's like one of those bathrooms that have two doors in it. Don't know why. We made our way out after looking for a little bit, and made our way to go back through the living room and go upstairs. Off of the living room as well as a closet, and right by that was the bathroom. In the stairway, there was a lot of spider webs, so we dodged them and went up. The wooden steps creaked as we made our way to meet the unknown. At the top of the steps, there was a little door, which I assume is like a little attic storage space thing. There were two rooms upstairs, one on each side. The one on the right had a bunch of old dolls, some hanging up and some just around. Paper and stuff were all around, and there was just a metal bed frame. And next to the bed was another little attic door thing. After snooping that room for a little while, we then went to the other room, which looked very untouched. Bright orange long shag carpet. The bed was made, only except there was a human-sized dent in the middle of the bed, which kind of freaked us out. There was also clothes in the drawers and notebooks everywhere. Me, being nosy AF, I looked through some notebooks, and some stuff that was dated back to the late 70s, early 80s-ish. Flipping through some random pages, I came across something about the stages of death, and what happens, and stuff about the death gargle and whatnot. But it seemed like she was just studying to be a doctor or something from the books, and all the other notes and books and such. There was a couple of pencils, a jewelry box, knickknacks, and a propeller hat on the vanity, but we didn't take anything, because we weren't trying to be haunted. That's just asking for it, especially if you take what isn't yours. The whole upstairs smelled very musty and dusty, and we started to get very creepy vibes, so we started to make our way back down. After all of that, we decided it'd be neat to check out the basement. There were webs pretty much covering the whole way down, so we used a stick to clear the way. Basements are always spooky, but this one was fucking weird. There was a back room that had a bed that was made out of straw, and then there was bowls on the ground. I know. It seems like they just have a dog, and that's what we thought at first as well. But the more we looked and put two and two together, this really, for real, seemed as if someone was in the room and wasn't let out. We wanted to explore further, but by the time that we were in there and looking around, it was dark out. Most of our phones had died, so then we decided we had to book it the hell out of there. We hopped out that window again and noticed the vultures were just flying above us in circles. It's like that dusky nighttime where it's just barely dark, but it's right about there. Ugh. The eeriness was still lingering, but it's been about a year or so since that day, but I'd definitely love to go back and see things that I haven't yet seen, and possibly do a spirit box session. Definitely when it's warm out, but there's that story. It was very creepy. I would definitely love to go explore it again. Go see what I haven't seen yet, because it was kind of like a little quick adventure when we did that, just because, you don't know what you're going into, and you don't know what you're gonna see, don't know what's waiting in there. Like, just the way it was just very creepy. We didn't know what to expect. So that's it for our episode 2 of So Spooky. I know it's pretty short, but I'm gonna need more stories, so just, you can submit them to me. Put my Instagram down below, and then you can DM me on there as well. So I would love to read your stories for you. Share the spooky. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week on this episode of So Spooky. I hope to see you guys next time. So have a good one.